Morning, everyone. I hope all of you, your families, colleagues, friends, neighbors are all safe and sound during this unprecedented times of the pandemic. For the last few weeks, we have been hearing many stories of lakhs of migrant workers returning to their villages, and of course, the hardships that they have had to face during the transit or just trying to get to where they want to. And on the other hand, we've had employees doing their best to help these migrant workers, also trying to engage with them on a continuous basis and see what best they can do, both financially, personally, and help them get to their hometowns if required. However, given the uncertainty that we all face, something that we keep hearing, that we don't know whether this is the start of the virus or the end of the virus, would we be prepared to continue business as usual once the lockdown opens up across the country, or will things change? And that's really what we would like to discuss with our esteemed panelists. And with that note, I will invite the three panelists who are here with me. We have Mr. Sanjeev Lahari, who is the CHRO of GRP Group. Sanjeev comes with over 2 decades of experience across industries of IT, trading, distribution, communication, and manufacturing. Uh, I have Jagmohan Singh Rishi, who is the Vice President and Global L&D Head of Vocard Limited on digital communication. Jagmohan is an author of a bestseller book called Are You a Digital Dinosaur? And I will confess that I had not read this book, Jagmohan, but I will surely catch hold of it and I will, read it very soon. Jagmohan's also been awarded the Chief Learning Officer Award of the Year by Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And I have Vishal Wadhwa, who is the EVP and Head Rural Business of Fullerton, India. Vishal comes with over 2 decades of banking and financial services experience and has previously worked with organizations like TCS, ABN AMRO Bank, and Citibank. So welcome Jagmohan, Vishal, and Sanjeev. Sanjeev, my first question to you is your industry, your industry, the rubber industry, the manufacturing industry, uh, usually depends on manual workforce, right? On people who are doing hands-on work. And so, what percentage of your workforce has been migrant till the lockdown? And how has COVID impacted your business and your industry? So we just want to hear your first thoughts on that front.
Yeah, thanks, Niti, and good morning to everybody. Uh, just to get into the question right straight away, about say 15% of my workforce is actually migrant, which includes people on contract as well. Now, unfortunately, when COVID hit, it hit everybody. It didn't discriminate. So the migrants, yes, they have moved away. As a uh, Now we are still under lockdown, so to speak. However, we have plants across Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu. Little one in MP. Now, only the Gujarat plants, two of them, they have opened up as of now. Now, while I say this a little under caution, that because even though the plants have opened, there are areas which has under which have been identified as hotspots and have been kind of quarantined, and we all know about what is happening across the local areas. So therefore, the issue is that a migrant for me is even somebody who is coming probably from the other side of a road which forms the next district, and out there is a containment. So the effect of people coming back to work has been really, I mean, it has hit them hard, because now factories being opened after about say a month or so. People, if they want to, they are not able to come. Yeah, pushes us as an organization to think, how do we get our work done? And therefore, I mean, as we deliberate during the day, I'm sure a lot of other ideas as such will also come out or from that. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Sanjeev. Vishal, your business is focused only on rural areas, and you deploy financial services to your end customers. What's your experience, during this lockdown, and do you see any long-term impact on your organization and your industry at large?
Thank you, Niti. Thank you, team leads. Okay, let me give you a little background about my business. So we have launched ourselves in 2007. We are a fully owned corporate Biopollutant Differential Holding, a 100% subsidiary of Thamsec. Our focus is on underserved and underbanked segments, and we are one of the largest and fastest growing segments on that. We have 34 lakh customers, close to more than 650 branches operating and covering 600 towns, 60,000 villages, and we deploy 14,000 employees. Now, these 14,000 employees are in parts of our four segments, which is urban, rural, digital, and our housing finance company. Large portion of this 14,000, close to 10,000 employees, are in rural business, and most of them are migrant workforce. They go back to their villages during the weekend, and they come back uh, for the on Monday for the daily work. So a large portion of them, obviously, during the lockdown has gone back. The CRISIL report says that there are 25% casual laborer, and there are 38% service laborer who are migrant, and they mainly would impact industries of manufacturing, mining, construction. In our case, being a NBFC, where we do products like personal loan, business loans, loan against property, group loans, home loans, we have been engaging with all our employees, and our engagement, our continuous dialogue with them, speaking of their well-being, their family, and keep giving them work in terms of contacting our end customer on a daily basis and getting them feedback for all our customers whom they contact, in terms of making our end customers aware of the pandemic, figuring out in terms of how are they placed on financials, and giving them advisory and consultancy services, is keeping all of us in good stead. So my guess is that by as soon as we are operational, and we are operational quite a bit in our green zones, we have opened already 20% of our branches, and in these 20% of our branches, whoever we have asked people to come back, all of them have come back. So I'm very positive. I don't see any of my migrant workforce not joining me. Worst case scenario, I'm thinking 2 to 5% of them will decide to go back on their own to do something at their villages. Rest of them pretty much confident they'll be all back and running, and back to the floor.
Okay, that sounds very optimistic, Vishal, and thanks for that. Jagmohan, the healthcare sector is leading the global fight against the virus, and you're depending on skilled workforce is extremely high, right? I mean, has the migration impacted your sector, your organization?
Uh, Thanks, Nidhi, and thanks everybody from the panelists. I would like to say this way. I think we mentioned earlier also that pharmaceuticals, there's a lot of expectations from this industry, and to bring out quality medicine. And normally in our manufacturing sector, we normally employ the local workforce in that particular area. For example, we have a manufacturing sites in Baddi, Daman, Aurangabad. So we normally try that we take the local workforce. Of course, about 10 to 15% maybe migrants also. However, this may not impact in a big way, but those particular migrant workforce, we are prepared that once the lockdown opens, and as I'm hearing the news, the transportation, particularly for those migrant workforce, will open up. And we are just hoping that once we start operating at the full potential, then we would want the migrant workforce to come back to the manufacturing sites. That is from the manufacturing point of view, and from the marketing perspective, our most of the field force is stationed in their own headquarters, so they are already placed in their work environment. Once the things open up, then they can start working accordingly. Of course, there will be challenge, particularly from the in the corporate office. Sometimes there are migrant workforce at the support level, and most of them have gone back to their hometowns.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me ask this to all three of you, because I guess it's a very common question that people who are either, who migrated from other places and are currently working at your offices, or who've gone back and, you're expecting them to come back to your offices. How are you engaging with them, and what percentage, like I think Vishal mentioned 2 to 5% migrant workers may not come back, but the rest will come back. But how are you continuously engaging with them, and what would you tell to our, to our participants who are on this webinar, on what can be done to ensure the continuous engagement and the fact that about 95% plus people come back to our offices?
Okay, so I'll
That,
go first.
yeah.
Okay, so from our end, what we have been doing, it's not only the business people who speak to our employees, it's the HR folks, it's the leadership and training department who have been more engaged than anybody else. And they work, and their work and task has become much more than what they were ever doing. Similarly, a premises function. So it's not only the business people who are speaking to the employees, it's the whole organization behind them. There is a continuous dialect in terms of how much of workload they are able to do it from their home. Also a complete follow-up in terms of how much of productivity or efficiency they are doing and getting it back. So our business is basically a contact. However, what we have done is we have changed our incentive structure in such a manner that if we are able to speak to our customers, are able to, if we are able to be in contact with them, our incentives have changed, our methodology of working has changed, our connect with the employees have gone far more higher. So we are doing virtual branch visits, we are doing town halls more often than before. And I think these things of connect at this period of time is keeping us all in good state. And that's the reason I'm very positive about that number of 2 to 5%, because they are so much involved with their daily work from their homes. I don't really feel much of a difference in terms of the work which they were doing from office. So that's the reason, I'm very optimistic, I'm very hopeful, and the engagement drive is keeping me very positive in terms of getting everybody back as soon as we go fully live.
What's the experience of your employees, through these virtual connect sessions, and what works best? I mean, is it the incentive structure that will work best, or is it the virtual connects or the town halls? What's the experience from the employer side?
All of it put together, I cannot close down and say it's only the connect which works. So you have to also ensure that your incentives are moving in the direction of the change which we are doing in our business, and the combination of all of this really help us to keep us in a good place. I cannot just say if you just connect your customers and another day they just feel happy that somebody is calling them. It's not that. You need to keep them deployed, they need to be productive, you need to monitor them in a very different manner, have these daily regular virtual meetings, have a weekly town hall, have a call through. So all of this alongside changing the monetary schemes. So that's it. That's it from my side in terms of the way things have been going and shaping up.
Sure. Sanjeev, would you want to take
if I can,
yeah.
No, it's wonderful to hear Vishal on that, and I just hope that if all the sectors had the same kind of a privilege, monopoly like Vishal. No, the quick see now for us and in a typical manufacturing as such, there are definitely these two categories of people. Now, people on the shop floor, my worker folk, particular, where my migrant workers are the maximum, and most of them would have has gone back home. There, the demography is such that they are not digitally connected as much. They may not have a smartphone, and so my only way of connecting, and they live in places where connectivity is not a distance. So we are still in touch with them. Either if the person is on contract, to ensure that the contractor is calling them up and just taking a feel of where the person is. Is everybody safe and sound, and so on and so forth. And if they are here, if they need any help, my supervisors, etc., they are in touch with the workers and all. And at times, even the workers call us also directly, just in case, because right now there are a lot of concerns in their heads. What's going to happen to wages and all, and they are after. So, information is freely available and so on and so forth. So therefore we have a big role to play here, and that's what we are trying to do it even from us, and at least in our organization. Just during this lockdown, a little bit of happy news for us that we got our Great Place to Work certification for this year. So that boost up the moral for
Mhm.
everybody, and I'm sure that it is an effort, the way the way the whole organization, I mean, this culture of anybody can call, even me, even the promoters, at any point in time. The numbers, the access is absolutely free, is only one aspect of it. we
Right.
are trying to we are trying to give them as much of hope, confidence, and just saying that, look, there is job, so definitely come back.
Mhm.
However, how practical it is, because let's also understand that these guys are in villages. Yeah, it is summer months. Monsoon is a couple of weeks away, and there will be harvest.
Yeah.
So therefore, that is also playing in our head, that we have to really, I mean, plan accordingly to face that. Second is, my people who are really connected are my non-worker group, and there most of us are connected. So for us, I mean, we used to have this practice of doing fun Fridays. Now that has gone completely digital, and it is, the families are also involved in it, and it is, so we are having fun every Friday.
Mhm.
In spite of tomorrow
It's a
being a
good
holiday for
thing.
some of us, we don't want to let go the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the what has improved, what has increased, and I also see this trend, that as COVID hit us suddenly, so from tomorrow, stay at home and work from home. It came to that level. Though some
Yeah.
plans were going on for us to be more digitized and so on and so forth, it just hit us, and all it has pushed us to the corner. And I mean, touchwood, my at least my non-worker group has gelled up with it, has adopted it very well, which I must say. So even wherever they are, the daily connect calls that we have, plus the town halls, I mean, the repeated town halls which we do, the email communications, even somebody, if it has not received the message, still reaches to the person. So that bonding of the organization is really coming to use now, which is a very welcome, I mean, a news when I look at it
Mhm.
from my side. But yes, it is going to be challenging to get the people back, particularly the ones who have gone away. That thought still remains in my head.
And in your estimate, what would be the percentile of people who may not come back? I mean, what are you preparing for?
Maybe half, maybe half
Oh,
my,
really?
maybe half my
50% of the
population.
workforce will
But
not come back.
50% of my migrant workforce. So that
Yeah,
means
yeah.
we will, yeah, we'll have to make a living with it.
Wow. That's a large number though.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Jagmohan, what's your view? I mean, how do you think this reverse migration is going to impact the healthcare sector and your organization at large? You're on mute, Jagmohan. Dinesh, can you unmute Jagmohan?
Yeah. That's right.
Sorry, yeah.
So as I mentioned, thank you very much for informing me. As I mentioned over here that we normally take mostly of the time local workforce. I will say that we are engaging our workforce in two manners. One is there are two kinds of workforces at manufacturing sector. One who are connected through the company laptops or systems, and some who are not, and they do not have, as Vishal mentioned, that everybody doesn't have the luxury of having a smartphone also. So
Right.
particularly those guys, our HR team is regularly in contact with them and updating them on what is exactly happening, because they don't access emails and company systems and everything. So that is where the HR is pretty proactive in that, and getting and keeping them engaged in that particular process, so that once the lockdown opens up, and we can get back to them for work. Second is there are a lot of communication which is going from the corporate side as well as from the L&D side. I think we have not seen so much of activity in throughout my life, what activity we are seeing these days. And we are trying to keep them engaged on a regular basis. And we are rolling out modules for the development perspective. Now, but again, I will be very open that we can only engage those people who are on the company systems
Yeah.
and company processes. Those particular people who are not on the company systems, for example, on our learning management system, they will not be there. So we are for that, the call is the only criteria or the gadget which we can connect with them. So there we are making sure that the HR team, the line managers, supervisors, they keep on asking them the well-being of it, and of course ensuring that the salaries have reached them or not, all those aspects. These are some of the aspects how we are trying to keep them engaged.
Sure, sure. So, you did mention when we were previously having a chat that your L&D team has never been this busy. Do you foresee
Yes.
upskilling, reskilling as the need of the hour, and do you also foresee a change in skill sets required for the workforce post lockdown open up and post things normalize?
I will say I totally agree. The L&D team has been, up to work to their ears, and throughout, even those business heads or cluster heads who were never demanded it, they are now after my life that please arrange for my team decisions. And they also, good news is they are also trying to understand the concepts of those particular learnings, and they're becoming co-facilitators also.
Right.
So that is one good part also, and because this is a time when you get captive audience and you can share those learnings and
Absolutely.
concepts, and we also get time to make them more precise and business oriented.
Mhm.
Second point which I was talking about, you might ask about the upskilling part. Yes,
Yes.
I will say that upskilling will be required not only at marketing level, but I think every level upskilling will be required, reskilling will be required. And COVID or no COVID, in fact, the change was already happening in other countries. India was, little taking it easy. And I mean, I'll share with you one incident when I got a friend of mine who works in US, and he works for a multinational company. And I just casually asked him, so how far is your office? He says, my office is about, half an hour drive from here, my place. But I go to office once or twice in a week only. I said, why are you on the roads of the company? He said, nothing like it. I mean, I'm on the roads of the company, but it is work from home.
Yeah.
So I prefer to work from home. My company has a policy of work from home, and he's at a director level there. Okay,
Mm.
he's not a junior level. He said
Right.
that I just walk in the office, and whatever cubicle is or
Right.
workstation is vacant, I sit there. So
Right.
that kind of egos one should not have, that I need to have a cabin only when I go into the office. I mean, senior level, of course, exceptions, but at the middle management level, if we'll have to have the rethinking of our mindset also, and at the same time reskilling with respect to working from home, the do's and don'ts. I think a lot of material is floating around in the social media and on emails. What are the do's and don'ts of work from home? So
Mhm.
these are some of the aspects we will have to rethink and reskill. In fact, TCS already announced that a lot of workforce of theirs will be working from home.
Continue to work
So
from home.
the
Yeah.
strategies are being redrawn, and whatever work can be done from home digitally, these will be the things where reskilling will be required. SOPs are being made. I can't share all the details about it, but SOPs are being made for each and every JD which is there, so that how we can sharpen those particular things and ensure that productivity is not compromised.
Yeah, absolutely. But the fact remains that, the knowledge workers can continue working from home, but the manual workers or anyone who needs to be hands-on cannot work from home. And I think that's where the highest impact is also being seen currently across sectors. Right?
With respect to manual workers also, I will say, when once they go to the office again, they will be, we need to upskill or reskill them, that how do they work in a socially distant environment.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
So that is also has to be taken, because this COVID thing is not going to go away just like that.
So
So
soon, yeah.
only thing we have to be careful enough, and maybe we adopt the way Japanese are working. Of course, all of you must be knowing about it. Japanese 24 hours or maybe 365 days, they wear a mask and they have sanitizers in the open
Yeah.
areas, and that's what they use. That's a way of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
if I can please add
Yes, Sanjeev,
to,
yes.
Jagmohan's,
Mm.
and I quite liked, I mean, Jagmohan has put it really, I mean, he's hit the nail on his head. Now, I look at it in two ways. One is the first thing that has to get out of our head is the way we used to work. हम तो ऐसा ही करते थे या करते हैं, but अब तो करते हैं कोई नहीं,
Mm-hmm.
करते थे. It's past now, and we
Right.
are in the now of work, as I heard from quite a few places.
Sure.
So we have been pushed into a point where things are different than yesterday, and we have to. I mean, the best thing is to accept it and
Accepted.
move on with it, make the changes within ourselves. From the workers on the shop floor as well, one key thing that I used to I mean, here in my organizations and also in other, in quite a few other manufacturing places, that is to be, that this is my work.
Mm,
This this is my work. That is not my work. ये मेरा काम है, वो मेरा काम नहीं है. Yeah, या फिर मैं ये करूँगा, मुझे एक helper चाहिए.
right.
These mindsets has to actually go
Change.
from all across the strata. For the knowledge workers or for people a little up in the hierarchy, I think the key challenge one is to definitely adapt to the change, and I think that comes by default. No questions about it. We have to do the hot desking, which was not at all. I mean, which was not common in all the sectors. I'm sure, IT, couple of VFSI, and I think the processing industry, they used to probably, I mean, use those. But in generally, hot desking is not as common in India. I will want to go and sit on my seat, and I will sit on the table where I have put in my pictures and so on and so forth. Rightfully so. That was the environment. That is going to
So Sanjeev, are you also planning for a reskilling, upskilling of your workforce, both at the plant level and otherwise? Is there some kind of thinking happening on that front?
Yes. So reskilling, upskilling, A on technology, B on other parts, because the machines, the way they used to work, is probably will not as much happen. We used to only talk about IR 4.0. IR 4.0 is now. Yeah.
Reality.
So it is reality. So
Yeah.
therefore, so people need to gear up for this absolutely now. The other point that I really want to touch upon is on the skill and mindset of the managers. It is really not easy to manage teams which are dispersed, particularly when people are working from home. I mean, either working from home or say, I mean, remotely based, if I may, because I do see a lot of this remote management to come in to be a reality right away. So here the managers need to unlearn and relearn the skill of really remote management, because again, the concept of employee engagement is probably more than before. And by engagement, I mean not the activities, but the effect on productivity. People need to be really geared up to push the productivity and delivery as much. So yes, it is a change. It is, I mean, we are in this process of change. I mean the entire, the entire industry, if I may. And the faster we adopt, I think the chances of survival of those organizations are going to, it's really going to be put in that.
True. Vishal, what's your thought on upskilling, or is there a need for upskilling your rural workforce, reskilling, or even when you're getting new people into the workforce, what is it that Fullerton is looking at currently?
As a company, as a corporate study, 50-55% of the people in anyways, COVID, let me touch on that point. No COVID, you need to rescale yourself. Every 2 years, you need to harness your skills. So definitely reskilling is going to be the order of the day, more so now. From our side, like we know, disbursements, business volumes are going to dip in the first quarter, second quarter of this financial year. So we are going to rescale our collection, our sales force to do more of collections, credit related work. And that part of training has already started. Now this is adjacency to what they have been doing earlier. So reskilling is going to be a big portion. Work is already started on that. Similarly, to close the gaps, upskilling is also going to be the order of the day. The marketing guy, the product guy need to enhance the procedural knowledge in terms of coming out with innovations, coming out with newer products, because the world has going to change now. It's no longer going to be a contactful role the way we played before. So it's going to be a digital enhancement, digital innovation, looking at payments in a different manner, and the entire banking financial service globally will undergo a lot of change. So training, reskilling, upskilling, cross-skilling, all is going to be very, very prominent, far more than before.
Yeah. I guess the technology adoption in our country has moved ahead by 10 years, right? I mean, probably where we envisaged ourselves to be in 2030, we, in last 1 month, we've actually gotten there. So skilling and ensuring that our employees, our workforce are able to catch up with the technology adoption is extremely important, right? Jagmohan was mentioning earlier that the healthcare tech will also become a large need of the hour. So can you throw some light on that front, Jagmohan, on how do you see the healthcare tech being adopted in India? Sorry, you're on mute.
I just put it on mute. That's a part of the tech only.
Yeah.
So healthcare tech is already there in India, and it is it is already taking some baby steps. For example, in research and development, many of the companies are using artificial intelligence or IoT or blockchain other aspects. Supply chain is using blockchain. So in research, primarily if we are using artificial intelligence and machine learning in R&D, the way we are trying to do, find a vaccine for COVID. So technology is trying to help us out also in that, and for other molecules also. It saves a lot of time, man hours, the key scientist timings, so that we are able to find out a new molecule at a much faster rate. That is from the manufacturing and R&D point of view. Let us go into the marketing point of view, customer engagement also. Now post COVID or currently COVID scenario, our customers, the doctors, will not like to meet our sales guys for a physical meeting so easily. I think that is true for any of the industry who's into sales or customer engagement,
Right.
be it finance or be it pharmaceutical or any insurance. So that is a now we are trying to find out way how technology is going to help us out to engage the customers, and we are trying to find out newer ways to engage the customer. Number three is how are we engaging our internal force through digital learnings. We were already doing at Wockhardt, we were already doing blended learning approach, and luckily uh, as a foresight, we had already developed the learning management system which were pretty robust and was there in web as well as in app format, and we were doing technology as medical as well as the soft skills trainings through that. However, now the need is that we also need to upgrade the skills of our trainers also, because the percentage will change now. Earlier it was 50-50 or 40-60 of blended learning approach of classrooms 40% and blended, digital was 60 or 60-40 accordingly. Now it is going to be more than that, about 80-20 kind of thing. So the skills of even facilitators or trainers will also change. How we can do the engagement digitally and virtually. So we'll have to use those technologies. We are already using Zoom, Meeting, Hangouts, but we have to pick up those kind of technologies which are safe at the same time, just like a WhatsApp. Technology should not be very complicated that it becomes difficult for the user to operate it. So we are trying to bring out as many technologies which are easier to operate, and the compliance level, the implementation level are much faster. Apart from that, we are also trying to use technology to engage our customers. That is how the sales force will engage their customers, and also from the marketing point of view, how we engage it. So we are using a multi-channel pronged approach so that there is we are able to connect with the customer through multiple channels. So we are trying to use health tech in that particular manner.
Okay. Thanks, Rishi. Sanjeev, how do you think the manufacturing sector will change post-COVID as a result of migration, as a result of new technology adoption? And could you recommend 3 or 4 changes for people managing plants, businesses, and HR, in the manufacturing sector? What could they be prepared, with?
Okay. See, with this disruption, and I do look at this as an opportunity for the long pending change that probably the Indian manufacturing sector would have needed. I talk a little bit under correction because if I use the term Indian manufacturing sector, then it is going to be a very wide canvas. But however, the organizations which could have adopted the newer technologies earlier on and did not for whatever reasons, I think right now this is the only way for survival, because there is, I feel an absolute need of reskilling. It may be a little rehauling as required. Social distancing is here to stay. And, as my fellow panelists have already said, and we are also getting those feelers that COVID is not going away, or these, this I mean, incidentally, this morning, it came up that the so-called Indian Jappi is probably not will not be seen for quite some time.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, with social distancing thing, I mean, being in place. Most importantly, also the industries will go through an enormous uh, financial challenge, if I may. So and some calls here and there will really come on to people. So I'm not sure of how many industries will be able to really continue employing the same number of people in the same capacities, doing the same way. So there is definitely going to be a change there. So therefore, wherever we have people, I think one of that, as I mean, industries must look at how to get the how do we get the optimum work out of the people. With the concept of cheap labor, we used to have, ठीक है, एक जगह पे दूसरे रख लो, किसी को contract में रख लो, because our labor laws were also in the, had allowed that, or it was not as strict. I foresee much more stricter norms are going to come away, because never ever in our country we have seen directives come in from the government saying that you have to pay salaries even if you are closed. I'm not going into that direction. It is sub judice. The matter is now sub judice. However, it is where the government is also looking at, because it has a huge economic impact across the sectors. Number one, the upskilling of the managers, upskilling of supervisors, the way people were treated, needs to change. Most importantly, it is not like, so I used to hear that, this phrase that I am a supervisor, I will only supervise. My work is only to stand and look at people, goes away completely. I expect a much more focus on performance, output, and productivity. People need to be working and independently completing their own jobs. Adoption of technology on the manufacturing sector. I've already said IR 4.0 is already in. It is not in the future. So we are not far away. We should have been there, but we are not far away from places where machines are going to talk to machines, and the job of an operator, as I foresee in most industries where you don't need the touch and feel is not required, is actually to look at a panel and do the job. So a drastic movement of skill. How are we going to do this? Do we need to have people, within our confinement areas, within our close vicinity, where God forbid another lockdown comes, we are not affected because of people movement? Are all the plans that I think strategically the HR function needs to really be proactive and planning, all these things. If I have covered your points.
Yeah, thanks. Vishal, what should the focus of the financial sector be when it comes to managing manpower, till maybe normalcy kicks in, and what happens after, after the normalcy, kicks in? And how, what's your view on how can lending companies sustain and grow during this period of uncertainty? Because you yourself said the first 2 quarters are going to be difficult and uncertain. So, what's your view on that front?
Yeah, I believe the office of the future is going to be like the office of the past. So the environment that ensures well-being, safety of the workers, taking care of all our employees in terms of sanitization in all our branches. So employee well-being remains the key focus for every organization, and we are nowhere different there. Now, in terms of the way we are looking at the year as 2 different halves. The first half is going to be consolidating our portfolio, protecting our portfolio, being close to the customer, connecting to them. So that's the way we are going to approach. So we have to redraw our strategy, go back to our drawing board, and look at first protecting our portfolio and taking care of our employees and customer, which is the prime importance. And then we go back. I'm pretty optimistic again on this part that this is going to be a temporary impact. So maybe the first half would be a much slower one. However, coming into October, if the lockdown does not get extended and we have more green zones coming up, we have enough 3-4 months to really do a V-shaped recovery. And come October, we would be back to our 80-90% of our disbursements of business growth what we have planned. The year overall would be muted, but the second half would come very, very different from the first half. It's important that we plan properly in the first few months in terms of how do we want to grow business, what kind of business segments and customer target segments we need to adopt and rethink about. And once we plan that piece well and take care of our employees and work on the needs of our customer, the time would turn, the tide would turn, and second half would be as good as what it was prior to COVID-19. And we may end the year almost the financial year as what we had planned in the beginning of the year. So the March number could be the number which we would be planning for that particular month. So rethink, redraw your strategy, be nimble, be close to the customer, be close to your employees, connect to them. And if all these things are planned and executed well, I think the V-shaped recovery will be on its course soon.
Thanks, Vishal. Jagmohan, I mean, for the last many years or decades, we've continuously been hearing about the term VUCA world, right? I don't think anyone was prepared, right? And we heard VUCA and we heard BCP. Everything was written down. But in true sense, what's your view? I mean, how is this volatility changing our world right now? What it's going to be for the future? And as an L&D professional, any pointers for HR folks, L&D folks, to how do we overcome this uncertainty given the situation and for the future as well?
In fact, I'm using VUCA consecutively for 2 days now. I mean, yesterday also in one of the webinars for the doctors, I've used this word, and they were not aware of this VUCA, doctors, but management professionals are definitely. And I have mentioned earlier also that VUCA has become reality now. Earlier, it was only on the slides and on the presentations. I mean, COVID has really shown us what VUCA is. And I mean, when you're suddenly asked to sit at home the very next day, that's VUCA, and total uncertainty. And now we are understanding that what the definition of volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity means. So what this is, of course, we are watching this at what is VUCA, but at the same time, a proactive organization, a proactive leadership, proactive people are those who make the best use of this scenario. And that's exactly most of the organizations, they are trying how they can proactively, positively, engage, number one, their employees, and number two, their customers. So if we engage our employees and ensure that, we show the real insight, the real feeling that we are caring for you, and in these times also, and we are there for you. And number one is through the right kind of communication. Number two is the right kind of engagement through learning and development initiatives, like what Vishal mentioned, town hall meetings. So more the communication, the better. There will be much reduction in the anxiety and stress level of our employees, and that is where that they will further engage their customers positively. And we show them a way that how they can engage the customers, how they can do their jobs. If they are into customer engagement, we tell them how we can engage the customers. And as Vishal gave a very positive message, that we will have to rethink the strategy, but we rest assured that we will be there. So maybe quarter one, we have a different kind of strategy. Quarter two, quarter three, quarter four onwards, we have a different kind of strategy with a V-shape of recovery. So we have to give a very positive, communication to our employees, be at the shop floor or be at the frontline level at the sales guys. And very, very important people for us are the supervisors, the frontline managers who are managing the front end representatives or the shop floor workers. So we engage them, the leadership engages them, and we train them also. At the same time, they create a positive environment of culture, of education, learning, and of course, positivity.
Sure. Thanks. So, we've been hearing from the start of today's conversation and even previously that social distancing is here to stay. And I think it's a good thing for our country, because as a society, we've never thought of social distancing as a way of life, right? Obviously, that's going to stay. But apart from that, and this is open to all three of you, what would the new normal be going forward?
Okay, Niti, you spoke about social distancing is going to stay. Office is also going to stay. It's not going anywhere. People might
That's a good
people
idea.
might look at working from home all the time, but I don't think we can give away the entire office. The norm is going to
Absolutely.
be at least 40-50% of the employees would be working from offices, at least for the financial services field I can speak of, because our branches are very much there. It's not going anywhere. The customer touch point needs to be around.
Right.
However, having said that, I believe the central functions, some of the functions which could operate from home, and those functions obviously will, be moving over to working from home environment or a weekly or a bi-weekly visit to an office. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that will also bring in productivities and efficiencies and cost saves for any organization. So
Yeah.
that in any case, people like TCS has already declared how many a big percentage of their employee workforce will be all moving and working from their homes. Now, I don't think every financial services can look at a 75 or a 50-60% number, but a decent number which could really help to bring on productivity, efficiencies, cost save. And I think a lot of these functions working from home comes out to be better because the work could happen at its own time. That the
Yeah.
instrument, the device could be yours. So it's on a whole, it's going to be a big win scenario for the organization if they plan well. But my guess is office is also going to stay and it has to work in tandem alongside with the work from home.
Yeah. Bang on, actually. Yes. Jagmohan, any views from your end?
I totally agree with the Vishal. The office is definitely going to stay. You know, otherwise, there will be issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, people will take their own offices then.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, and of course, as Vishal mentioned, we will have to rethink about the strategy of attendance. And at the same time, social distancing, it is easier said than done. Niti, in India, considering the population which we have, I mean, traveling in local trains or buses, I don't know how we will ensure. It is going to be a nightmare for the policymakers to ensure the social distancing. Like, I mean, if we are able to ensure social distancing in the office, what is happening at their homes then, in those
Yeah.
areas? That is very, very crucial. This hygiene, it doesn't mean only in this environment. Hygiene
Right.
means across the ecosystem which has been created, the environment which has been created. So the policymakers will, I think they are already doing a lot of, brainstorming and, headbutting so that finding out the solutions for it. So for example, in a person who's coming to a office in BKC and the staying in Dharavi, I mean, it is going to be, I just leave it to your imagination.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
so, so from that angle, we'll have to ensure that social distancing only is not in office, but also across the board in an ecosystem, and we'll have to create a lot of awareness. I hope everybody listens to it with respect to Swachh Bharat, Safe Bharat. On those aspects, if people start listening to it, and a lot of ownership has to be brought on. I think I'm talking big things, but I don't know whether they will be, implemented or not.
Sure.
But I don't have the answers as of now from the community social distancing point of view. Yeah, from the offices, companies, it is in the hands of controls of likes of Sanjeev or Vishal. But I don't know about the community point of view.
No, which makes which makes our jobs a little too crucial as well. And I mean, as both Vishal and Jagmohan has said, so the community, we really do not have too much of a control, because what's happening out there, we cannot as such control other than making people aware.
Mm-hmm.
And we do hope that after 55, harping something will work out. Yeah, I
Right.
hope people will be aware about that. But the worry is that we do not bring any kind of infection, say COVID, within our premises, and that is because factory shuts, everybody gets into quarantine and all of those. But most importantly, thereafter, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
So your voice is lost.
If that happens, and okay, is it okay?
Yeah,
Can you hear?
better. Yes,
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, we need to be really extra cautious and maybe a little more disciplinary, if I may, to ensure that our workforce stays, healthy and safe. We do not want any kind of illness which can be a little contagious in any which ways to affect any one of us. And there also a self responsibility and discipline comes in. That, so for example, if I am not feeling well today, I better not go to work. As an organization, we are trying to actually, have these messages every day, if possible every hour, because now in this situation, whichever plants are working out there, there is this awareness thing happening at the start of every shift. That guys, if you're not feeling well, please step out.
Right.
And yeah, but yes, offices are going to stay. Yes, it will not be shut, but we will work differently. Let's be okay with that. Let's accept that.
So yeah, so thank you.
Thank God.
There's a lot of things that we can continue discussing, but keeping the time in mind, so I had these questions that I thought we could discuss. We have some participants who also listed down a couple of questions while we were conversing in the last 45-50 minutes. So Pinang, can I request you to read out the questions? If they're addressed to any specific panelist, or if it's generic, then any of the three panelists can take up and answer the question.
Sure, Miti, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Super. So I think this question is definitely for Jagmohan. So Jagmohan, the specific question has come from Mansi Joshi, who is one of the participants on this particular webinar. So very simple but very important, I feel, is that besides online training, which is typically digital content that you have to offer, what are some of the other ways, other modes that you feel the learning teams of the industries and of the company should press into action to engage the employees much more than just online training programs?
Thank you for the question. Interesting question. Mansi, I don't know what the background is, but I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. In training, there are three kinds of training to my best of the knowledge. One is the classroom training, second is the online training, third is the blended approach. So the blended approach is something where we have a combination of classroom as well as the digital training. So there are other trainings also, but I'm not covering that, supervisor-based training and other aspects. But if it is to be led by a L&D team, in the coming times, the classroom, purely classroom is going to be totally no-no. And purely digital also, I don't believe in that. Although some companies have already gone to 95% of digital or online trainings, but the effectiveness, my personal take is I am a coach and a leadership trainer. So I personally believe that one should always have a combination of classroom as well as digital trainings. Maybe the first training, I come from the healthcare field, so doctors' first diagnosis happens one-to-one unless until digitally can be done. For example, physical examination has to be done. So physical examination has to be compulsory. The follow-up can be done on digital. Okay. Similarly, the classroom training is essential. Particularly, say we are rolling out a situation leadership module or ownership or accountability module. Coaching processes. So first visit, first contact. If it is in person or classroom, it is always effective. The follow-up can be done digitally through multiple ways. There can be an app, there can be a software, there can be email, there can be WhatsApp, whatever it is. So the multiple modes can be fixed up. There can be Zoom meeting also. So that is this is how the multiple contact points and follow-up is done through blended learning approach. And there's a larger aspect of it. Maybe if you want a bigger answer, you can contact me offline. I can give the answer, bigger answer.
So Mansi also wants Sanjeev to answer this question.
Yes, Sanjeev.
Yeah.
No, because I completely agree with Jagmohan. See, what currently there are these modes available. However, again, I'm also from that mindset, if I may. I don't know how I will change it, but beyond the point, the personal thing is still needed. Now, the classroom can also be a virtual classroom.
Yes.
By classroom, I mean instructor-led.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing, the other point of learning is, I think, I see a lot of change in from an L&D perspective as well, that the onus of training people is getting much more onto the managers. Uh, and guiding people through that. So basically, managers as coaches, quote unquote, is something that is coming up. Like, I mean, somebody who needs to be trained immediately. The parcel comes on to the L&D guy. So uh, I don't foresee that to continue for too long. किसी को communication skill चाहिए, उसको भेज दो, बताओ तो सही क्या चाहिए, and then how are you going to help it? Most importantly is not learning. The way I look at it is the implementation of learning, and there the managers would have a much bigger role to play. The way I look at it. But completely agree with Jagmohan on this.
Just wanted to add one point here. When there is a purely digital learning, the belongingness, the engagement comes down. For example, a person is joining a company, let us say Fullerton, and we give them a laptop. Okay, this is your induction program which is happening, and everything processes are told online, and Mr. Vishal Wadhwa comes on screen, and induction happens. I mean, the belongingness will not be at that level. The way the HR manager or the training manager engages with that person. Of course, there can be, Mr. Vishal can go and every nook and corner through digitally. That is what I think there has to be always a blended approach. The engagement will be much higher if there is a blended approach.
I think the 10-20-70 model of learning will continue, and probably the emphasis on the 70 will be a lot more, where the manager involvement or the peer involvement of learning also increases continuously. So, along with the classroom, the virtual classroom, or the online model of learning. So more than one classroom is anyway what Jagmohan has been mentioning, throughout. So.
Thank you, everybody, for answering the question. I think I'll have to move to the next question. This is from Ranjit Menon. And I think any one of the panelists can take this up. So the question is very simple. What are the things one can do to engage the customers with employees, post-COVID? And where personal contact is not possible. So how do you help as an organization for the customers and the employees to get connected?
Vishal, would you want to take that?
Okay, so we thank for the question. For us, this corporate social responsibility as an organization is a big piece. So whenever we are opening our branches today in the green zone, our first point is that we should start engaging with our customer. And how do we engage with our 35 lakh customers? So we first do an activity in terms of educating some of our customers about the COVID-19 in terms of how life is going to change for them. And there are a whole lot of engagements around tutorials, doing interactive sessions with them. And both our employees and the customers in that ordeal are pretty much engaged. And alongside, when we open a branch, we also do distribution of sanitary, because the customers are such that they are from, they want to take loans on livelihood purpose. So we do those activities for them where they are given medical kits or hygiene kits, and that keeps them going. And apart from that, we at this point of time are not even speaking of any kind of loans, disbursal or payments or any of these things. The engagement is primarily for them to understand the causes, the way this whole disease could be prevented, the adequate care around it, social distancing, the consultancy in terms of loan moratorium, how do they need to keep their credit going. So series of education for the customer, financial literacy, and the engagement at both ends. A lot of the time the customer come back and gives his side of the story on how he's looking at things post-COVID. What are the fields he's looking at expanding his business? It is a two-way traffic in almost every interaction we have had when we have opened our branches. And it is very important. My first point I had raised earlier as well was the continuous engagement between the employee of ours and the customer is the key for the success in the future. And customer is God, and his life may change, and most of their lives will change. And if we do not are aware of the change he is going through his life, and if we are not engaging currently, not by doing our core job, but by doing adjacent roles of keeping connect to customer social responsibility, I think it will keep us in good stead. Also, that's very important according to me.
Yeah.
if I can just add on
Yes,
that,
Sanjeev.
and very
Yeah.
and very well said, Vishal. I think I mean, it's an absolute key to keep the customers engaged and most importantly also informed about, so for example, what is happening in our situation. Now, for example, our product is a physical product, and it goes to more than 60 countries all over the world. Yeah. So wherever they're opening, I mean, wherever the businesses are open and they are asking from us, and we have just started dispatches very small. Before we went on a lockdown, we had told them that, look, you know, based on this, we are going on a lockdown. But before, and this is what we have done. So we actually had prepared proper communication decks, both internally and externally. The externally was done, you know, with a little more, what should I say? I mean, precision and forward-looking view that what happens when we come back as well. Yeah. So we have been in contact with the customers just when the situation started hitting us, I mean, end February, early March. From there on, we had sent them, I mean, regular, you know, updates of what is happening, both, I mean, from the leadership team and the respective account managers. And I mean, we have had, I mean, a much closer interaction with our customers. I think more than any time else. Earlier, the discussions only used to happen on orders. Right now, it is much more on, you know, how both of us are, I mean, can get into a symbiotic relationship maybe. Yeah, and I think that helps, and I think there is no substitution to that. The person-to-person connect.
Yeah.
And being transparent enough of saying, you know, that I can do this, I cannot do that, or this is how we are doing for you. Because now the key question for us is coming that, okay, your country is under lockdown, you are sending products, how do we ensure that these products are safe?
If I may add, we also did a lot of SMSing, voice blasting, you know, speaking on phone with the customer when our branches were not open. So that also is one way of being connected. When there was no physical connect, the connection even became more digitally. So customer engagement rules the roast here.
Okay. Yeah, Pinang.
Yeah, so thank you. Sure, Jagmohan, sure.
Just I'll be brief about it. I totally agree on the customer education point of view. This is a golden opportunity to engage with the customer with respect to, you know, engaging and educating them. So that is the best way. I mean, there has been an incident of one of the, I'll not talk about the industry, the person, sales guy sent a WhatsApp message to one of the customers asking for a support for his particular product. The customer blasted him. And he said, do you think in what kind of environment we are in? Don't send me such kind of WhatsApps and texts. Because you never know what is the state of the customer. He can be a police officer, he can be a doctor, he can be a healthcare worker. So we need to have a customer empathy. And as Vishal mentioned, we don't talk about only the products, but also we talk about the well-being and safety of the customer. At the same time, there are tools which we are trying to do it. And for example, webinar is one of the tools which we are using extensively. I think everyday basis, we have 2-3 webinars for different kind of customers, be it gynecologists, be it orthopedic surgeons, be it neurologists, be it physicians, general physicians. So we conduct a lot of webinars and engage them on different topics. It can be medical topics, it can be COVID-based topics also. In fact, let me share with you, for COVID, doctors are most interested for how to manage it. In fact, they are doctors and they want to learn more about it. And every day you will be surprised that 500 to 2,000 customers join on webinar on this kind of thing. At the same time, I will also go back to your question, Diti, that we have to reskill and upskill some of our employees with respect to storytelling, case study based communication, you know, and having customer empathy, so that they talk that language which does not, you know, impact the customer negatively. So that is where we have to use a positive engagement communication rather than, you know, those which are jarring kind of thing. I think briefly I'll say this much.
Thank you, Jagmohan. Thank you for that. I will just read the last 2 questions if everybody's fine with that. So I think this is definitely for Sanjeev. So I think the question has come asking that, especially in industries like manufacturing, not only manufacturing, where good talent may be subject to job losses because of either they don't want to return or they can't return, and in some cases the employer takes a call like that. Is do you think that other industries will be open to attract cross-functional talent, right? So basically, how do you think the job market is going to pan out in coming quarters?
Well, Anusa has asked the question. Thank you for bringing this up, because it is the last thing that any industry professional, and particularly we in HR, would actually want to do. But unfortunate reality, it may happen. But let's be clear about it. I think right now, or rather post-COVID, the requirement or the fight for talent is going to be at its prime, because the entire concept, the entire paradigm of the game would have changed. People who can multitask, people who can work independently, people who can take on multiple assignments and so on and so forth. I think it is going to be a huge opportunity for that, for those kind of people. So therefore, this time, whichever, if people want to really reskill themselves or sharpen some of their actors, I think this is the right time to do, because their own value proposition as an employee will also change and put them in a much better place to maybe, claim a rightful opportunity whenever it comes. I also see a surge in a lot of assignments or a lot of employments that can be called as the gig. So, for example, a rewards professional, and I'm only talking this as an example, a rewards professional or an L&D professional may want to handle multiple assignments, and that can be across organizations, because these skills are basically industry agnostic. Yeah, and it is not only in HR, it can be in any kind of it can be in finance, it can be in strategy, regulatory, blah 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 blah. It can happen. Project management guys, I had seen a couple of years ago that they are preferring more of fixed term type assignments, that I come, I do this, I get my share, I go. I see a lot more of that coming in the due time, because as industries also, if we need somebody for a job which is only, say, for a couple of months during the year, may not be for the full year, the thought process may be that, okay, then I would really get this job only for those couple of months and not pay a person like a regular employee for the whole year. So I really see this coming in. Yes, it can be a challenge for some, but at the same time, it is definitely an opportunity for many. I hope I have answered. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandeep. I will move to the next question, because I think this will be the last question, folks. And I think we've covered most of the sentiments that were coming out of the questions that were asked. And in case there is a question that you still want an answer to, please feel free to write to Dinesh, the ID from where we got the reminder this morning on Zoom, for the Zoom webinar. So this is for Vishal. So Vishal, the question is that since the rural India is the new normal now, considering that the labor market reverse transition and uncertainty of the pandemic, will we need to take jobs to tier 3 and tier 4 areas? What is your opinion on this, Vishal?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I agree pretty much. We'll have to take some jobs to tier 3, tier 4. A lot of companies are looking at moving from metro tier 1 to tier 3, tier 4 in any ways. So it makes sense that you move to that part of the world and get employment from there. To answer briefly.
Okay.
Indirectly.
Okay, so obviously we have a lot more other questions which are unanswered. We'll consolidate that and get answers from the panelists and respond to the people who asked these questions. There's a huge takeaway for at least for me, and I'm sure for almost everyone who's been on this session for the last hour. Social distancing is here to stay, offices are here to stay as well, and how do we work as a balance between the two is for us, as corporates, as employers, as HR folks, how do we ensure that our people are skilled, upskilled, right from managing the new normal to working under the new normal. I guess it's very important. And of course, it's interesting to hear from all three of you on how you're engaging your current workforce. I mean, Sanjeev, interesting to hear that your Fun Fridays continue to, to exist. And, the combination of incentive structures, e-connects, virtual town halls, and of course, the upskilling that Jagmohan mentioned for WOCAD. There's so much of a takeaway from the session for us. So thank you, Jagmohan, Vishal, and Sanjeev, and thank you all the participants.
Namaste.
Namaste. Yes, I think that's going to be the new normal for sure.
This is the new normal.
Sat Shri Akal and namaste. Absolutely. So thank you, everyone. I know we've surpassed our time, but I will not hold you back for longer than this. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for
Thanks,
the time.
Vinay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you,
Bye.
Vishal. Thank you, Sanjeev.
Bye, Jagmohan. Bye, Vishal. Bye, Jamjeet.